So we were talking about Beast Wars as a podcast about two comedians rewatching the 1990s TV series Beast Wars Transformers. Although we are discussing a children's television show, the podcast itself is not intended for children.
So, I've got some bad news for you, Andy.
All right, Phil, what's up?
You know, somebody beat us to the name. So we were talking about Beast Wars as a podcast on Spotify. Isn't that amazing?
Ooh, that seems unlikely. It's such a specific name. But can't win them all.
Huh. Yeah, it was especially weird because there were 3 dots after the so. That was very on point.
Oh, rotten luck. I guess we'll have to, we can add a 4th dot to ours, right? And then we're cool. But I don't see what you're getting your panties in a twist about.
Andy, are you a spy?
What? A spy? I don't know what you're talking about.
You know, that's obviously what happens here. I think it's even in the Spotify terms and conditions. If somebody uploads a podcast by your same name, then you, by law, have to accuse somebody else of being a spy.
All right. Yeah, I see you're doing everything by the book. I'm not a spy, but I suppose there are other things we have to do. Here, let me bring up those terms and conditions here.
Yeah, and it's not a book. It's one long thing you have to scroll.
Yeah, scrolling. Yeah, and it won't let me click on agree until I've scrolled all the way to the bottom. Wait. So I've got to get banished to the lava fields over this? How's that going to prove whether or not I'm a spy?
I don't write the terms and conditions.
Fine. But this really grinds my gears. And for booting up cold and other such epithets. I just want to go on the record.
Don't worry. If you live, I'll take the whole thing back.
You know what? You're harsh but fair.
Thank you.
Oh, it burns! Oh, God! Oh, God! But worth it for the $50 that competing podcast company paid me for the naming rights. So, ... we were talking about Beast Wars.
Son of a bitch.
So we were talking about Beast Wars.
We were talking about Beast Wars. I'm Phil Thomas.
I'm Andy Hunter. Thank you for joining us. Today we are talking about Season 1, Episode 8, Double Jeopardy. Upshot for this episode, is Rattrap a spy? You can sort of boil it down to that. I was surprised to see that this is 2 episodes in a row. We start with the stasis pod falling. The main thrust of this episode isn't actually the competing chase for the stasis pod. Instead, we just start with teams have already arrived. Given that it was all hands on deck last time to get the stasis pod, it was surprising to me that it was only Optimus and Dinobot going after this one.
That's a good point. I wonder what everybody else was doing.
Well, we know, I guess, Rattrap at least was manning the sensors. Rhinox and Cheetor just had the day off. I don't know. But also, this very much looks like Tigatron's Frozen North neighborhood. Where the hell is that lazy bum?
Yeah, good point. I mean, you were the only person who didn't really help with the pod last time. It feels like this is a situation where your number's being called.
Yeah, it's a last in, first out situation. You know, get with the program, Tigatron.
I have an idea about why both episodes start with the falling stasis pod.
Okay.
Different writers wrote different episodes about a stasis pod crashing to Earth. And both of them were in the writer's room. They were like, I guess one of us should change our story. And somebody was like, well, I'm not changing mine. The other guy was like, well, I'm not changing mine. Fine. We'll just have 2 episodes where a stasis pod crashes to Earth to start.
Yeah, and if Tigatron were more an active presence with the Maximals in every episode, I would see why you'd want to introduce Black Arachnia so early, because so then the numbers are even again. But at the end of Fallen Comrades, they really left themselves an out for not having to do that, because Tigatron will see you when we see you. So we could have waited a couple episodes, but oh well. I feel like there's just some bad tactics when it's Optimus and Dinobot. They're boxed in the canyon. They see, oh, the pod's up there way above us. Seems like Optimus could have flown up and grabbed the pod then, or just about any time, but then they're getting shot at, and his plan is just stand there and fire back and not focus on retrieving the pod. He also kind of like announces himself to Waspinator as he flies up towards him, like, that's Maximal property. Seems like he could have shot Waspinator before just standing there and declaring that. Maybe he was afraid of damaging the pod, but still it seems like the script called for the pod getting stolen. And so the Maximals made the choices necessary to ensure that would happen.
Yeah, it feels like a real Optimus moment.
No, that ain't ape shit. That's bullshit. I'd have blasted up there. I'd have ripped Waspinator's wings off. Said, oh, good luck flying without wings. You know who can? Me. I know. Optimus Primal's got those prime jets. You know what Optimus has got?
What's that?
Banana rockets. I store them next to my banana hammock, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I get it. No need to spell that out. None.
Are you sure? A couple episodes ago, you guys really laid it into me to remind me that this is not a child-friendly show, so I'm just saying I have it in my contract. I will do both nudity and simulated sex.
Duly noted, but we can't always pay Screen Actors Guild rates for that number of hours, so we have to limit the amount of time you're featured because you're so talented, you're just that expensive.
Well, these are all true statements. Also, I do demand an intimacy coordinator if I'm going to engage in that sort of performance. Anyway, though, the pod gets stolen. We get well, that's just Prime from Optimus, which seems like a bit of an underreaction to, one of our friends has just been kidnapped and is going to be basically mentally enslaved.
Yeah, I agree. And I would put this in the zone of weirdness because different people are writing adjacent episodes and the show's probably still trying to find its voice in some way.
Yeah, and also it's a kid's show, so you have to treat some things with less gravity than maybe they would normally be treated in real life. Back at the Maximal base, they discuss that it has supposedly now been 3 ambushed missions in a row. I guess those were all missions between episodes. Cheetor uses the term rat metaphorically, but then Dinobot really latches onto that like, but Rattrap was the one who directed them to the canyon where they were boxed in. So could Rattrap be a spy?
Oh.
We switch over to the Predacon base, and they activate the protoform, turn it into Black Arachnia. It seems like Tarantulas names her, because everybody else names himself, but Tarantulas like, may I present Black Arachnia?
Yeah, like he's Frankenstein and it's his monster.
Yeah, which I guess was that while he was, switching her programming to Predacon programming and scanning for spiders, I guess he just typed in, all right, name, Black Arachnia.
He's got a thing for Black Widow spiders, so he just forces the issue.
Yeah. He's like, maybe we can go out sucking together someday. I don't know if you're into that kind of thing.
Back off, webhead. I've just been here for a day.
We will get on to the complicated relationship in future episodes between Tarantulas and Black Arachnia. But for now, we are introduced to Black Arachnia. Let us call her design iconic, shall we say? The story I'd read back in the day is that the character designer who was assigned to design Black Arachnia in the show was an Asian guy. They got him drunk and took him to a strip club and then had him work on the design.
That's not true, is it? Is that really true?
That's what has been said about it.
Damn.
Black Arachnia is voiced by Venus Terzo, who, like so many of the other actors on the show, is a very accomplished voice actor. I will give a shout out to her role as female Ranma in the English dub of Ranma 1/2, but I know she's been in a bunch of other stuff. Black Arachnia in general doesn't make the best first impression in this scene, since she just is doing weird poses and kicks by herself in the background while she's talked about.
Yeah, it's weird. Somebody later shoots off her legs, but I was like, wait a minute, they didn't even preface that her legs can shoot bullets yet.
Yeah, I think that moment later on was just to show her being really badass. And like, oh yeah, they're shooting parts off me, but I don't even care. We switch back over to the Maximal base, and Optimus sends Rattrap to the lava fields to search for Energon as a test of his loyalty. As we were joking earlier, it's not super clear how that really would be an effective test of his loyalty. My first thought was, is that more of an Optimus-style punishment?
Oh, I don't know there, brother. I got lots of different types of punishments, from the heat fields to the cold, cold north. By the way, let me tell you something about that snowfield. You know, Dinobot complained about being there, but not me, brother, because that's where you could grab a taste as cold as the Rockies. One big 24-pack, brother. Just open me up an ice-cold tall boy of bananas.
Oh, I really thought you were going to be talking about some sort of beer. You were painting a picture in my mind of a commercial where beers are kept cold by just being shoved in the snow. But bananas are much better for you than beer, so I'm glad to hear that, Optimus.
That's right. And I assume if I were going to send Rattrap to the lava fields, it would be for some kind of beer that's brewed with jalapenos.
I'm not familiar with such a beer, but I assume it exists. I think if you can think of it, it's out there somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, we've now got Rattrap gets ambushed by Pterosaur in the lava fields. I think in the last episode, we were talking about who does have I-beams and who doesn't. And now here we've got Pterosaur with I-beams.
I wrote that down too. I noted that too. He's like, oh, now Pterosaur has eye lasers.
Yeah. And then Rattrap defects to the Predacons to avoid being killed. And all the Maximals listening in are shocked. And I was a little surprised by that because in previous episodes, they've highlighted to us that most of the Maximals are scientists or explorers. So are scientists and explorers still expected to just like, no, I'd rather die than become a captive?
That's a good point. They're not necessarily a militant organization, but they are at war.
Yeah, that's true. Let them be called Beast Wars, unless we forget. But also, there's still a difference between, even soldiers, you're allowed to get captured. It's just a matter of you're supposed to then resist interrogation. But I guess that's different than I beg for mercy, and then, sure, I'll become a Predacon.
Yeah, apparently they don't believe in hostages, so if you wanted to survive, I guess you had to defect.
Yeah, I guess so. So then we proceed to the Predacon base, where Pterosaur is saying, look, I captured the stasis pod, I captured Rattrap. I really liked Rattrap's background acting during this scene. That was funny. He waves when he's introduced. He gives a thumbs up when he's mentioned again. He salutes when Pterosaur mentioned that he swore fealty to him. And then he wags his finger when Pterosaur says, oh, but my great leadership doesn't come for free.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny too.
But then Megatron is like, cool story, bro, but I'm not going to let you take command. But then we get a real don't tase me, bro moment. When Rattrap has this tool that paralyzes Megatron and keeps him from transforming, seems like one of those things that would be useful in every single battle for the entire rest of the show. But instead, Rattrap throws it on the floor, and presumably it then fell down into the lava. And that's why we never see it again.
Yeah, that would just be my weapon straight up. I'd just walk around and hit people with that on the battlefield.
Yeah. Maybe tip each of my missiles with one of those, or just make a 50-foot long pole with that on the end. And I don't even need to get close to you. Just poke you from far away.
You could also tweak the design a little bit to be like a rake and then just put a bunch of them outside the door of the Predacon base. So that they're walking.
Man, the Beast Wars would have been over pretty quick if you and I had been the ones in charge.
I know. We really should have written that pilot for the Beast Wars movie.
Well, in 20 years, they'll be rebooting it again, I'm sure. And then we'll have our chance. We'll have built up our following from this podcast. There'll be a groundswell of support from the fans.
Yeah, there might even be 3 people by then.
So here in this scene, we've got Scorponok speaking like a caveman again. He's like, no, Scorponok, not follow Terrorsaur, or something like that. But then later on, in a later scene, he is back to using full sentences. He says, you want us to follow you? Well, I will not.
Okay, that's interesting. I've also been looking up some of the scripts online. I wonder if that's a gaffe with the voice actor or a gaffe with the writing.
I would expect it is a writing gaffe, that different writers had different senses of, or there were conflicting notes in the story Bible, maybe, or something. And as they were going through the episodes, they caught maybe some of the instances and switched them, and not all of them. That said, it's so much easier to think that something like that is the case from one episode to another. But different scenes within an episode, it does make you like, well, I guess they caught it in one place and not in the other. But I still don't know which is the version they liked and which is the version they didn't.
I'm assuming they didn't like either version because they kill off Scorponok as soon as possible.
They could have killed him off sooner than this, but I think they killed him off because there were just like limits of just the size of the cast that they wanted to have. And like CGI I think was just trickier for them, at least at the time, than cell animation was back in the 80s, where you could just, oh yeah, let's just draw a new character and great, now we've incorporated a new toy. Now we've got Rattrap and Megatron in the Predacon brig, which is just cages dangling over lava. Again, Predacon base sucks. If I were them, I would just defect to the Maximals and be like, hey, do you have floors that are not lava? If so, can I live here? Megatron has a secret program that lets him escape from the brig. And then Rattrap picks his lock and jumps across the lava. I was really expecting that he would get his cage swinging first so that it would be a shorter jump, but he doesn't do that. Clearly, he's never played or watched Floor as Lava. But then we do get another Beast Wars Bingo moment where he's dangling over the lava.
There you go. So a couple of observations about this sequence. One, I was just wondering why the Predacon base is so much bigger than the Axelon. And I started to wonder if maybe the Maximals were cut off from part of the ship. But we see a lot more of the Axelon in a couple of episodes.
Oh, yeah. In the next episode, we see the Axelon is much bigger than we have glimpsed so far.
I also like how easily Megatron just strikes up conversations with his enemies.
Yeah.
Leaning into the trope of like how charismatic evil villain leaders can be.
Yeah, that if it's not actively a moment where it makes sense to be trying to kill the opponent, it's like, yes, of course I've got a program to escape from a brig. I am a wise tyrant. Anyway, toodaloo.
Speaking of that, seeing a T-Rex with its tiny arms operate a hoverboard as it's flying away was just pretty damn funny to me.
Yes. As Rattrap does escape into his corridor, there's a real rat there who basically tells Rattrap to follow him. He just gestures, very unlike the real cheetahs who were so freaked out by Cheetor. So maybe it's not that animals are freaked out by robots disguised as animals. Maybe it's just that Cheetor is just, his personality is super off-putting to cheetahs.
Yeah, Cheetor's a little bit extra. And Rattrap, he didn't really try to mess with the rat or say anything to him. It was just like, all right, thanks, bro.
Yeah. Also, a nice, cute little moment of background acting from Rattrap here. After he basically shrugs and follows the rat, he blows a kiss to Terrorsaur from his hidden position under the grate. I often think of Rattrap being a very mouthy character, so it was funny to see these silent jokes from him. Then, as Rattrap is going through all this, the Maximals are outside. They've managed to get right underneath the Predacon ship. I guess the automatic maximal targeting weapons just aren't turned on right now for some reason.
What were they there to do? Everybody there was under the impression that Rattrap was still a traitor. They're trying to get in there to save Rattrap or try to attack.
If I'm recalling correctly, they're there because, traitor or not, Rattrap has intelligence that we don't want falling into the Predacon hands.
Right.
Which, if you believed that he has already been giving information to the Predacons for 3 missions now. I might assume if I were them that Rattrap has already given them all the information he has.
Maybe they mean he's such an intense spy that he has like a data drive trapped up his rectal cavity. So when they say he has intelligence, he physically has it on his body, and we don't want it pooping into the wrong hands.
He has it stuck up his command module.
There you go. Stick it up your command module.
Yeah.
When you made the observation that, hey, they somehow got outside the Predacon base, how the hell did that happen? Have you ever been in a video game where you're in co-op and you've been avoiding this one camp the whole time, and then one of your buddies gets into trouble in that camp, and you're just like, oh, shit, here we go. And then you just kind of like, you bust in and you just start riding through or like running through all the different obstacles. And then you suddenly find yourself at the door of the base or the gate of the base. And you're just like, I didn't think that was possible. I didn't actually think it was possible for me to run in here and get up to the base. I guess that's what that scene kind of reminded me of.
Anything's possible if you put your mind to it. Back inside the Predacon base, Rattrap discovers a Maximal chip that has been letting the Predacons spy on them. Then he gets caught in one of Tarantulas' webs, but he uses a blade built into his hand to get out. Will that blade ever be seen again?
Maybe.
Better yet, I'd have that blade tipped with that taser that we saw earlier.
That would be a really cool and effective weapon, like a taser dagger when you're grappling with somebody. Just shiv him with that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. As he gets out of the web, Tarantula sees him having been poking around where he's not supposed to, and Rattrap has now evolved into the version of himself who will dishonorably shoot someone while they're unawares or transforming. So in this case, he shoots Tarantulas while he's like, I've caught you. I love that.
Yeah, I love that moment too. It was so satisfying to see him just shoot Tarantulas, because I really was expecting Tarantulas to go on with this little deranged rant.
Yeah. Rattrap sends a signal to Optimus. Optimus goes like, all right, now let's attack. We have another fight where everyone just kind of runs straight at each other rather than taking any kind of cover. Waspinator once again is on the receiving end of Rhinox's chain gun. I love every time we see Rhinox's chain gun and he just takes somebody apart with it.
Yeah, it reminds you of how powerful he is. Maybe one of the reasons they always try to come up with some sort of gimmick for why he can't be involved in battles, because the Maximals have a lot of bigs. Like, they've got Optimus, they've got Rhinox, and they've got Dinobot. And that's just like a lot more power one-on-one than the Predacons have. They have Megatron, and who else would you consider to be a big at this point?
I mean, Scorponok certainly has a lot of ranged firepower. I can't remember just how physically big he is compared to the others, though.
That's a good point. I'll take that.
Rattrap is ordered to fire on Optimus, and after several missed shots, he does hit him and sends him down. Cheetor alternates in this fight between being a great shot, like just shooting the gun out of Black Arachne's hand from far away, to then being a bad shot. He's running straight at her. He shoots off all of her spider legs, but cannot hit her core. And then he's like a few feet away, and he's still missing her and just runs straight into a kick from her. Although there is, in that scene, there is something weird. We do see in the background Scorponok getting hit and taken out. So I couldn't tell. Was that supposed to be that one of Cheetor's shots went so wide it hit Scorponok? Or was that just somebody else taking out Scorponok?
I certainly hope it was Cheetor, because otherwise that's a tough look for my guy.
Yeah. But so, yeah, he runs right into her kick, and then she apparently departs sneakily from the fight, because later on, Megatron says, we're missing Black Arachnia. That doesn't seem to amount to anything, because then in the next episode, she's just back with no comment. Maybe they were just setting up that she is a sneaky character who will be doing her own thing sometimes.
That makes sense.
We have another instance where Dinobot seems to have the opportunity to do some real damage to Pterosaur, but instead just roughs him up and shoves him out of the way instead of blasting him, because in this case, he's got such a mad-on to kill Rattrap. But then Megatron shows up, orders Rattrap to kill Dinobot, and Rattrap instead shoots Pterosaur's head off. Is it just he needed the right shot to get that head off, or was Pterosaur weakened from the beatdown Dinobot already gave him? I'm sure it's getting old at this point, me harping on the inconsistencies in damage that these characters can take.
Yeah, but I had the same observation. How powerful is Rattrap's gun? It depends on whether or not it's a cool guy moment.
Yeah.
The way I reconciled it is his gun has a minimum and maximum charge. You could shoot the minimum charge, but if you hold on to it and charge it up, it fires a powerful shot.
Oh, yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Reminds me of a couple people out there might get this reference. In the video game Metroid Zero Mission, at one point Samus is out of her robot power suit and is stuck with basically a little pea shooter gun. And in that game, what happens is you can't manually charge it. You just have to let it charge up between your shots. It can momentarily stun a bad guy and then you can sneak away from them. But you can't just go in blasting because you need to let it charge up between each shot.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe Rattrap is the same. As we said, Rattrap shoots Pterosaur's head off. Dinobot escapes Megatron's grip. Luckily, I guess maybe Rattrap felt confident that Dinobot just needed a distraction to get out before Megatron would bite through his head with his dino head hand. Dinobot escapes Megatron's grip and then punches him. Again, he's not using his weapons. And then that punch knocks Megatron out and also knocked out one of his teeth.
Yeah, that was funny. One of the things that I found really funny when Megatron returns and he goes up to Pterosaur, and Pterosaur's like, Megatron, you're back. And Megatron is just sort of like, so, you're in charge, huh? What's your plan? It really felt like a parent managing a child that's throwing a tantrum. It's like, oh, yeah, we'll have all the sugar in this bag that you want.
Yeah. I will happily hand over command to you when it will demonstrate your unsuitability for command.
A lesson we should all learn.
Yeah.
Another funny thing about this scene is Dinobot runs up to Rattrap and is like, you traitor! And then Megatron runs up to Dinobot and is like, you traitor! So the three of them form a traitor sandwich.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think earlier in the episode, I think they kind of point out to Dinobot, you're one to talk about defecting. But anyway, Dinobot has knocked out Megatron, and then it turns out that when Rhinox is charging in his rhino form, all the Predacons in the way just stand there scared and let themselves get run over. Seems like that's a tactic that could be exploited in the future, because when it's time for them to get out of there, Rhinox just charges and everybody's like, ah, and lets themselves be bowled over.
Yeah, that's the attack you spam. Rhinox charging in beast form.
Yeah. Back at the base, we learned that this was all a ploy to get Rattrap in so he could discover how the Predacons were spying on them. Other than the drama of the episode, there's not actually an explanation given for why the other Maximals could not be let in on this plan. Rattrap says he was trying to miss Optimus, but then points a finger gun and laughs, so it's left kind of ambiguous whether Rattrap was indeed trying to miss him or not.
If I were him, I would have a little fun in that situation too. It's like, hey, well, you gotta do what you gotta do. Stay in character. Pow.
Yeah. And then we end on a peaceful shot of butterflies above the Maximal ship. And I noticed none of the Maximals accused the butterflies of being the spies. Bart Simpson was right. No one ever suspects the butterfly.
But I'm telling you it was the butterfly.
Any other thoughts on Double Jeopardy?
One from the beginning, when we see in the very beginning the stasis pod coming into the Earth, we actually get a glimpse of what a protoform looks like before it has been imbued with its new powers. And I thought that was interesting. I didn't think we'd ever get to see that. I assumed it looked like a Terminator 2 style metal blob.
I think in later episodes, it does look more, or I mean, it's still humanoid in shape, but it is a little bit rounded and looking like pulsing, mercury kind of thing. But yeah, in this case, just already has Black Arachne's face and otherwise looks like some generic robot.
On the Beast Wars bingo fronts, how many times do you think Maximize was said?
I think Maximize was said 4 times. And Terrorize, I guess, 3 times.
By my count, Maximize was only said twice, and Terrorize was only said twice.
Okay.
Yeah, for the number of people involved, it does seem kind of low, right?
Yeah.
And as far as the Beast Wars bingo moments of Bullet Train hanging precariously and Animal looking to the sky, you mentioned it earlier, we did have a hit with Hanging Precariously, Rattrap over the lava on the Predacon base.
Yeah. So there we go. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I've been Andy Hunter.
I've been Phil Thomas.
And now we have talked about Beast Wars.